I'm a son of a Methodist minister. My own two sisters, older sisters, are conservative Christians, and they were professing things that really disturbed me, that my boys would not be accepted into heaven because they were gay.
We've really been very deliberate in wanting to create a space in the church where the queer community could feel comfortable to be welcomed and loved. I'm Karen Murakami.
And I'm Glen Murakami. We are proud parents of two gay sons. We dated for a long time. It was probably about 7 years before we got married. I think I was just a sophomore in college at the time, and went to dinner and saw a movie. I'm trying to remember the name of the movie. It was a very long movie. Shampoo. Warren Beatty, and it was in a very romantic night for me. My first kiss that night, I nearly fell off the step as I kissed her, falling backwards. And I knew at that point there was some, it was going to be a magical relationship.
I'll fill in a little bit of the details. I'm going to correct him a couple of things too. So I will be honest, I saw Glenn and I went, that guy's kind of handsome. And I did ask him out first. I was the one that asked him. So dinner was at the Chart House in Westwood, and we went to see Shampoo. I remember all of it. It was really great. And actually, I agree with Glenn. I think that first date, there was a lot of chemistry. I knew right away there was a definite connection between the two of us. And I do remember him almost falling off the stairs after we had our first kiss. I thought it was very sweet. And actually, Glenn was very romantic. He took me back to the Chart House to propose. So we went back there for dinner, and at the end of dinner, he handed me a rose, and there was a ring in there, and it was all very, very romantic. It was wonderful. Of course, I said yes, and 41 years later, here we are. It's been wonderful. I feel very, very blessed to have met him and for him to be my life partner. It's been wonderful. Our boys came out just over 10 years ago, and I do remember, at least for me, both of us, Kyle, our youngest, was the first one that actually came out. He decided to do it in our church parking lot. So it really, I think when I think about it now, I felt like it was a 5-minute conversation of him coming out. He happened to be home from the East Coast visiting for a big event that was honoring his grandfather. It was shocking. I'm not gonna lie, I was really shocked. I had no idea. Candidly, if that had been our older son, Derek, I would not have been as shocked. I had been waiting to have that conversation with Derek. The conversation with Derek coming out actually happened 3 weeks later. So Derek had happened to come back home for the Thanksgiving holiday, and we were in the car getting ready to go Black Friday shopping together. And we were talking about Kyle having come out, and how that was for me and for his father. And then in the context of that conversation, I remember Derek just kind of turning and saying, "Mom, you know I'm gay too, right?" Well, I did let him know that I had thought he was, but I didn't feel it was my place to ask him. I felt like he had to be the one to share that with us. And my immediate thoughts after that were a fear. What did that mean? Both our boys were already in their early 20s. Just over 10 years ago. And so they were really finishing college and starting their careers. So I kept thinking, are they gonna be okay? I was worried about their safety. And then their just professional ability to be authentically who they were scared and worried me. So I think for me, that was hard to think about. Their adults are not children. I couldn't really, and they both were living out of state. So it wasn't like I could be that helicopter mom who could really help support and be there for them all the time, because we weren't physically in the same place. And then the other thing, if I'm being really honest, for me that was hard. I always just felt like I had this close relationship with both my boys. Like, we could talk about anything. And I kept thinking back, what could I have done differently that maybe would have allowed them to come out sooner to us? Was there something we did or didn't do that made them feel like they couldn't come out sooner? Because in speaking to them after, they both felt like they knew they were gay when they were in middle school. So it had been years. And I think for me that was something I had to really deal with. It was hard for me to think about, what if? Our younger son had a really horrible experience in the church when he came out. And it was really heartbreaking to me, I think to both of us. And so I feel that we've really been very deliberate in wanting to create a space in the church where the queer community could feel comfortable to be welcomed and loved and, come and worship. Because even to this date, our younger son really doesn't attend church. It was a really hurtful experience. And though he has a relationship with God, it is outside the church. So for us, I think working in this space has been really important to us.
One of the things that Marcia has encouraged us to do is to further the work that we do in the faith space. Marcia has shared her own story of the difficult challenges she had and Aiden had in the church. So I think it helps us to move forward with just promoting acceptance and love through the church, whether it's just our local church or other churches throughout not only Southern California, but throughout this the area that we touch now. And we've now touched Japan as an outreach. So I think it's important that we still continue the work in the faith space. The biggest challenge to me was my understanding was what was in the Bible, because I had grown up in the church. I understood that being gay was a sin, and I had to understand what that really meant to me as a Christian. Was I to accept that, or was I to try to break it down and try to relearn what I had learned over the years? I had friends, acquaintances who were conservative Christians. In fact, my own two older sisters, are conservative Christians, and they were professing things that really disturbed me, that my boys would not be accepted into heaven because they were gay. During that time, Kyle became engaged to his current husband, and we had to go through the process of the invitations, of course. And the challenge there was, do I ask my boys not to invite my two sisters who are conservative Christians, who might not protest, but be a disruption to the day that is considered to be a sacred day. One of my sisters happened to be on a mission trip out of the country, so she and her husband could not attend. My other sister, at the last minute, said she couldn't attend because of a financial situation. She lives out of state. So we somewhat avoided that situation, or that struggle that took place within our family. And I asked my son Kyle, would you want his aunt to be there, even though he knew that she was against gay marriage? Well, he said he would leave it up to her to decide if she wanted to attend, but he would not prevent her from coming to the wedding, which I thought was very loving and accepting.
Kyle and Zach's wedding was the epitome of joy, I think, for our family. And I think the thing that hits me the most is, as part of Kyle's wedding vows, one of the things that he shared is he just felt like that day was really a dream that was never going to happen. With just gay rights and marriage, and it was just for him a dream that had come true, that he really never thought would come to existence. So to see both of them so happy and two families coming together that just love both their sons so much, it by far today is probably the most joyous and loving thing that I've ever experienced.
Since that time, I've had a number of discussions with that same sister, and unfortunately, it came to a point where we couldn't come to an agreement on that topic, and we hadn't talked for a year time because of our differences in opinion on that topic. We have since reconciled our relationship. We are still in process of talking about that topic, because I still believe that she has a very conservative viewpoint on gay marriage. That was probably the most difficult and challenging part of the journey I've been through. I have come to accept I'm not going to change some people's minds if they are conservative in their theological beliefs about gays and gay marriage. So I just have to accept that God still loves them. I have to love them in spite of their beliefs. I just choose not to spend time with that person or those persons. We're fortunate that in our own church, the Faith United Methodist Church, it has become what they call a reconciling congregation, which means it's a accepting and affirming church. So we're happy that that process took place, and we have helped other churches go through that process to become reconciling congregations. So I see progress in the Methodist Church. You may have heard of the split in the Methodist Church. The conservative churches have split off from the progressive churches to form their own conference. It's unfortunate, but I think it was necessary to do in order to move forward with the work that God has called us to do. Our involvement is probably in sharing our story, our story as parents, as well as our work in the church. I think I had experience of sharing at our sister church, West LA United Methodist Church, my story along with a group of other parents and those in the community. We were both able to share our stories here at Centenary United Methodist Church. It's just providing that resource and that sharing of our story is our work in helping other churches go through the process.
And I think the other thing I would add is we've really started this kind of collaboration with our church, West LA and Centenary. We actually had an event last year where we brought in Marcia, a gay Methodist pastor, and then a lesbian woman who they all came and they shared their story. And then we broke out and we had discussions. It was a really great event. And through that, I think the three churches have really decided that they want to continue to try to work together to keep furthering this work that all the churches are doing. It is something that we're going to continue to stay connected to. Kyle and Zach they are in the process of surrogacy, and I didn't realize how hard that was going to be. It's taken a while. I think we're moving into a year and a half, if not more, in this process. It's been a lot longer journey, and I think they've had to overcome more obstacles than I had any idea that they would have to overcome. And when I see the frustration about some of the things that they're having to deal with, it's hard to deal with some of that. And then even some of the political and just federal regulations that are in place for gay men, as well as the financial hurdle of going through surrogacy. I think we knew it was expensive, but I don't think we honestly had any idea how expensive it could be. And these days, it's not just, you try once. It's sometimes you have to go 2 rounds or 3 rounds, and that's all money out of your pocket. So it's kind of a tough part for me of the journey, because I know they want children, and I'm dying for a grandchild. I am just so excited about, the aspect of them having a family. And, they've resolved themselves to the fact that if surrogacy doesn't happen for whatever reasons, they'll adopt. But then, there'll be all those hurdles to overcome as well. So I think they're a little worried. They're not getting any younger, and they, don't want kids too late in life. So, all of this has just taken so much time. And for me, I keep thinking, they're going to be wonderful parents. And so I'm just kind of praying that this process is moving forward and it happens for them soon in the near future.
We could be facing another 4 years of a very abusive and someone who would take away the rights of not only my sons as being gay, but those who are in a gay marriage. So removing those rights is a possibility, and I'm just fearful for not only my sons, but the entire community who is already facing a lot of discrimination and rights, just basic human rights being taken away from them. The transgender community, it's just very, very harmful. And I fear for the community, my sons as well. The other, I guess, concern in the church on the faith perspective is because the religious right is taken on such a strong position in our nation, we have to be mindful of doing the positive work that is already taking place. The progressive churches, especially now in our Methodist churches, to strengthen that foothold and to just be the church that God intended us to be. I think that's important. Yet we may not ever change the mindset of the religious right, but we certainly can protect the rights of those who are on the progressive side.
I, as a mother and a parent of 2 gay sons, for me, and I think about other parents who I think have this fear when they find out that their children have come out to them, that they've chosen a path out of fear of what they don't know. And I know that was partly my journey too. It's sometimes you're fearful of what you don't know. But one of the things, and the message that came across for me so clearly, was that we really need to choose out of love and not fear. And so I feel like that is something I want to try to share with other parents, that they should try to think about choosing out of love of their children and not the fear of what will other people say about me, some shame that they feel they might experience. Because I think all of us have, if we're being honest, we probably have dealt with some of that, and worrying about, fearful of what other people will say. But at the core for me is it has to be choosing out of love. I just can't imagine having my life without my sons in it. So that is a choice I've decided to make.
I have discovered in my journey is that in our culture, we have to deal with shame quite a bit. Not to be shamed for being different from others. We want to be the same as others, if not better. So I think we have to get over that shame, and there is no shame in loving your child unconditionally for who they are authentically.
We want others to realize that, if you're walking through this difficult time, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and there can be a lot of love. And I think we're lucky to have so much of that with our family, and that we've been able to walk this journey together with them. It's been amazing. I didn't think we ever thought this would be our life, but I feel like God kind of put us in this place for a reason. And so this is kind of the work we feel like we're called to do at this point. Yeah.